Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our next live stream. I'll be your producer for this session. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenters to answer live. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Reactor channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speakers for today. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. It's lovely to see everyone in the comment sharing where you're joining us from. So feel free to share with us where you're joining us from. There's Nitia from New York. There's Akris from East Anglia, England. I have no idea if that's the UK or not. And then we have Masazen from Canada and David from Toronto. Thank you so much for joining us this lovely day. For me, it's 8 p.m. in the evening, so very cold and very lovely to be hosting you from Nairobi, Kenya. I am Bethany Japchumba, a cloud advocate at Microsoft, and today we have such a fun session. If this is your first time joining Model Mondays, I promise it will be like a very, very good treat because we'll be hosting Cohere. And as it's our tradition, every Monday we have a session for you. Last week we had a session on May. So if you want to know more about all the sessions that are coming up, the first link, aka.ms/Model Mondays, is your link for you to go and explore everything around Model Mondays. And then if you want to continue being part of the community offline, being part of the community after this event, join us on Discord at the link aka.ms/Model Mondays Discord, and we'll be happy to have you join with us. As I said, today we're talking about Cohere. So we'll have very interesting demo around the 3 Cohere demos and an interesting agent. Let me not spoil the fun, but we'll have an interesting agent at the end. For those 2 sessions, someone is hearing an echo. Let me change my audio real quick. For those 2 sessions, for this session, we'll be talking about Cohere, how you can use the different models Cohere as, and how you can also leverage them on Microsoft Foundry. And then after this session, we'll have our weekly highlights, top 5 major events that have happened this week from the Foundry and from the Microsoft perspective. So come join us and hear what it's about. Good. So let me introduce Andy. He's a principal solutions architect at Cohere, and he will be sharing with us his demo and slides. Welcome, Andy. You can introduce yourself and then tell us about Cohere and the different models you have in store for us.
Great. Thank you, Bethany. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. I see some people from Canada, which is great, and you'll find out why if you don't know Cohere. Let's get started. So a little bit about Cohere as a company. Cohere is a Canadian company started by Aidan Gomez, Nick Frost, and Ivan Zhang. 3 researchers who decided that, hey, we can bring some great technology to the world, to our enterprise customers. Aidan is, if you didn't know, co-wrote the article, the paper on, attention is all you need, which is the foundational, for the transformer model, the T in GPT. We also have leaders in like the RAG use case. Patrick here is a co-author to the RAG paper, which is, about, answering questions based on enterprise data. And one last mention is Niels. He leads our search team. He created the expert model that was used originally. So what is the focus for today? Cohere as a company, we build foundational models. And there's 3 tiers of models that we focus on. We have an embedding model for embedding all your content, a re-rank model to reorder search results for better retrieval. And we have a family of generative models. One of them is called Command. I want to focus on these models and how you would be able to use them in your agentic use cases. So the idea is that where do they play a role in an optimized agentic experience? I'm going to deep dive on each model, and then I'm going to showcase an agent platform where we use those models as well to deliver that agentic experience. So Embed, what is Embed? I think for a lot of us, we've been doing vector search embeddings for a while, and textual embedding is something very common these days. I think some of the things that we find is that some of the enterprise content is, the knowledge of the enterprise can be trapped in some images and visual data like charts here. So the key value that we deliver is that instead of trying to use a text embedding model for your text data and put it in one vector DB and use a second model for your images and put it in a second vector DB, the value with Cohere embed model is that one embedding can handle both text and images or both at the same time. And it would be stored in one vector DB. So the retrieval is, streamlined. It can be retrieved. You can retrieve the right content, whether they're images or they're text, from one DB. In particular, we focus on, retrieving knowledge trapped in different types of charts, like bar charts, like geographical charts, like heat maps. The type of charts that you would find in PowerPoint presentations, PDFs, Word documents, those kind of things that would be, have hidden information. There are also situations where Cohere embed model is used in like retail. Imagine a user has an idea of what they want to buy. Imagine they have a picture of that pair of pants, but not exactly that pair of pants, but like this brown pants without the stripes. So the idea with this embedding model and the capability that brings to this use case is that we can describe the user intent in both images and text to deliver the best content, which is in this case, the brown pants without the stripes. So let me show you 2 live demos to illustrate the value and the benefits of Cohere embed model. Let's look at the business graph use case first. Imagine you're a user and you have an idea of what you're trying to look for, and it's this is chart that you saw before, right? But you don't know where you remember seeing it. Like, was it on a PDF? Was it a PowerPoint? And so we can retrieve content based on an image that the user uploads, right? And the exact match is at the top if there is an exact match. So the chart is this type of chart. The topic is Microsoft 2022 quarterly. And you can see that even if the chart or the graph is rotated, and that happens to be the case oftentimes, like in a PDF or sometimes in a Word document, we can still retrieve the best content, right? Hopefully you see that. And then we can take this experience, the user experience, further by saying, okay, as a user, I'm looking for this type of chart, but I'm not looking for this exact match. I'm looking for something that's this chart, but it's a similar chart, but the data is different. It's like the data before and after IPO. So if you see here, the best chart is now this one that talks about Microsoft IPO versus now. And keep in mind that we didn't say anything about Microsoft in the text. So hopefully you can see that the retrieval of the best content came from understanding the user intent, both from the user uploaded file, image file, as well as the textual description of what he cares about, right? So this is an example of business charts. What about manufacturing as another use case? We work with a number of different manufacturers. This is an example of like a scenario where you have repairs, you have huge Boeing manuals of airplanes, like the 737 and all that stuff. And, the repair person, the repair technician can search for something that he needs to find. He doesn't remember, again, the page in the repair manual, but he's looking for something, a mixed manifold. So when he searches for it, the best PDF page that comes up is this one, page 9, where the diagram, in the PDF has the word mixed manifold. By the way, if it's not clear, the word mixed manifold in this case is not stored in the PDF as text. It's stored as part of an image, so it's represented by pixel. But the benefits of using Cohere embeddings, Cohere embed model, is that because we support and understand both text and images, that we retrieve the best data, whether they're trapped in text or they're trapped in images. And again, what if he's looking for something like, let me upload an image, like an instrument panel. This is like, he needs to repair this, and he doesn't know where in the repair manual this is located. So we can search by image as well, and you can see the best PDF page is page 17, and it's an image that is included in this PDF page. So those are two demos. One is some business charts and graphs, and a second is around manufacturing and retrieving the right manuals, the right PDF pages for that use case scenario. So one of the things that my customers often ask me is, Andy, what are some of the best scenarios to use this model? Well, one is finance. Because we train our models from scratch, we make sure that they can be applied to a number of our customers' use case, like financial situations, where the finance documents oftentimes have charts like you see on the right, or tables. A lot of times it's stored in, the data is in tables, and you have to understand the different columns of the tables very importantly, right? So that's an area where we feel very strongly that we will perform best in class. We have evaluation benchmarks that indicates that against similar models in our space. Second is manufacturing. You saw the Boeing example, but we benchmarked against a number of data sets in manufacturing, and we're very confident we can support this use case and be really good at retrieving the right content. Healthcare is another use case that we focus on. So hopefully, if you're in the healthcare space, give us a try. That will hopefully, and you'll see that this will be a great model for your data set. And one other thing I want to mention is that this is a multilingual model. Over 100 languages we support. Whether the content is in English, Spanish, the Asian characters, we have benchmarks against a number of other, embedding models, and we lead the pack in terms of quality on multilingual scenarios. I want to close out this section by showing that, okay, you have these options on Microsoft Foundry. You have Cohere, you have OpenAI, Mistral, Anthropic, and we feel that we are a strong model for any embedding use case that you have. Our dimensions is large enough to be high quality, but not too large that storage becomes a problem for your use case if you have too much data, right? We have compression capabilities, again, to help you maximize your storage. We have the ability, again, to support multimodal versus text only, and our context window is very large. So, you know, having to deal with chunking becomes less critical if that's an area that you have challenges on. If you want to get started, this is a link in Microsoft Foundry, and this is a QR code. I'm going to pause here. Any questions?
Yeah, there's an interesting question in the chat. I love the multimodalism and the multilingualism of Embed because it means regardless of where you are, you can use it. But there's an interesting question from David is asking, will this work to find like people who look alike? I don't know about what your privacy and data protection is, but around like people, if you're looking for like someone in your database, will that work or is that something restricted?
Repeat the last two sentences.
Will it work to find people that look alike?
Oh yeah. So that question, that is more a different. I would say that matching faces or matching. I mean, that's more in the area of face recognition. So you would need a face model for that if you want to detect and recognize people or people faces. That's a different kind of model than this model, which is intended for enterprise documents.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
You can go to the next question, and then if we have time, we'll come back to that next.
Okay. Rerank. This is the second model that is available on Microsoft Foundry. So why would you want to use Cohere Rerank? I think a lot of times you already have an existing search pipeline, right? You're retrieving from any number of these, search DBs, or it might not even be a search DB. It could be a retrieval from a database, right? The idea is that you get a set of chunks or documents, and the relevancy of these chunks might not be the best based on your testing and your evaluation. And so simply by adding Cohere Rerank, which is very low effort to add that additional step, you can send the initial retrieval to Cohere Rerank, and it will reorder the documents to deliver best-in-class retrieval results. It's a point-wise kind of model, and it focuses on comparing the query against each document, and then getting a score. So practically, what are some scenarios where Rerank are better, right? So one example is numeric reasoning. Like I have a query where standing desk shorter than 130 centimeter. Well, you can see on the left here, this other re-ranker does retrieve 130 right desk, but it forgets to understand the user intent that, hey, I want 130 centimeter desks, but I also want desks that are shorter. So hopefully you can see in this analysis that the retrieval by a Cohere re-rank model is definitely better here because it understands the shorter part as well. Temporal reasoning. Here's another scenario where, re-rank, adds value. You can see list flights between May and August. You can see that it does retrieve May, it does retrieve August, but it doesn't do as good of a job for June and July, which is between May and August. And you can see comparatively to the Cohere re-rank, we deliver that range of time that you care about in the results, right? Another temporal example is, if you were given a date, like a before date of April, right? This is fuzzy, right? And again, this is a little bit, some of the results are good, some are not as good, whereas this definitely says, okay, everything before April, right? I want to limit what I return to like the March and February and January timeframe. And one last example where Rerank is really good is when the user query, the user question is multi-aspect. Like this example query is like, I'm looking for a place in New York, but not in Midtown, and I care about the price is under 300, and I want something with a rating of 3.5. So in a lot of times, like the vector DB, it can retrieve relevant content, but it doesn't keep in mind all the different multi-aspect to this query, right? As the query gets more complicated, right? So let me show a live demo of how this actually works in real, in action. I'll show a case of a Nike like retrieval. Let's start with a head query, something real simple, right? Easy query called shoes, right? So the vector search obviously will return shoes, and re-rank will return shoes, right? This is not where re-rank, where you see the benefits, right? Where you see the benefits of re-rank is when the query becomes more complicated, right? And in this case, when we do a search, yes, it will, the vector search will return shoes, and it will, and it sometimes will remember the gender of the shoe that the user cares about and the pricing, but it doesn't always care about all three factors, right? The product type, the gender, and the price. And you can see this very clearly on the left that, okay, it's return shoes, it remembers about the gender, but the price a little bit above 80. Same thing, above 80, shoes, women, shoes, right? So it's not, it's, whereas on the re-rank side, you can see that, okay, it took the result on the left and it says, aha, I understand that this is a multi-aspect situation. The user intent cares about products that satisfy all three factors. You can see here, women's shoes under 80, under 80, under 80, under 80. So you can, it's very clear, you can see that the benefits of the re-rank model is taking some decent results on the left and making it better. Because if you can elevate the value of the best results to the top, that improves the click-through rate. That improves that if you send the data to like a generative model, the generative model will pick up the best data at the top. So that is a demo of Rerank. And then again, when, what use cases, what scenarios would benefit from a Rerank? And so as part of when we build a model, we benchmark it against like finance. So, and you can see the results here. We're at the top of the quality stack against, again, finance that has a number of textual as well as chart data. Manufacturing, again, is something that we focus on, healthcare, and multilingual. The same, industry, the same use cases are benchmarks in both of our models to ensure that our customers can really get the best experience from these models. And again, our Cohere Rerank model is available on Foundry. There are other providers on Microsoft Foundry as well, but we're the only one purpose-built re-ranker against these other three vendors. Some people says, oh, Andy, I can use an LLM to do re-rank here. Yes, that's true. You can use an LLM. but the latency is a lot longer than a Cohere re-rank model. The cost, the compute cost to run an LLM for re-ranking also is significantly higher. So in terms of quality and the TCO for using Cohere, we feel that give Cohere re-rank a chance to really take to improve your use case here. And again, this is the link to our re-ranker. We actually have two flavors, a Fast and a Pro. Feel free to use the QR code to go to the right Foundry page. I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, there's a question. So you've mentioned you do a ton of finance work in the finance industry. So there's a question with money was asking, Cohere models were trained from scratch. What training data was used for the financial model that you shared? And did it have to learn from a specific data, or how did you go through that?
Yeah, for finance, the list of data sets that we use is listed here. Hopefully you can see that it's not too small. And obviously, we would love to engage with our customers. So if you try our models and you have some feedback for us, please reach out to us. We're always, we always want to see if we can improve the performance of these models. And by the way, we have the capability to fine tune these models. If your data set is, has a specific domain that you care about, and out of the box model, you want an even better performance. So reach out to us if you feel like that's something you want to explore with our team. All right.
Okay. And then one last question from Tat. Okay, I can't pronounce the name. So let me just read the question. Is the ranking system for people actually looking to purchase shoes like Nike in the retail case, or is it more for a company doing research? What scenarios is Reranking used mostly for?
If you ask for my opinion, you can do both scenarios, right? We do have customers that are in the e-commerce, and they use our models for selling products. But we also have enterprise customers that have a lot of enterprise data, like in the energy and oil and gas, a lot of research around pipelines. And so they use our models for those type of data. So I would say that we support many different industries. It's just that there's specific industries where we make sure, we're best in class, right? That I list before.
Yeah.
Hopefully that was that answers the question. If not, obviously feel free to reach out to us later and we can clarify anything. All right.
Yeah. They both said thank you. So I guess you've answered both questions. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Bethany.
Okay.
The third model I want to talk about is Command A. So Command A Plus is our latest generative model. It's a 218B model, mixture of expert with 25B that's active. It's multimodal. It takes in text and images. It has tool use. I think for us, for Cohere, we're not focused on building the biggest models. We're not in that type of race. Our models, our focus is building models that would, like, for example, would run on a submarine where you have limited GPUs, like a 1B200 or something like that. So how can we build a model that is sufficiently strong for our enterprise customers, that has reasoning, tool use, and citations to support use cases where it may be difficult to acquire sufficient GPUs, because some of the really huge models that you see out there are taking just 16 GPUs just to run one instance, right? So it's hard to acquire those GPUs sometimes. So that is where we focus. In terms of quality, we're sort of in the area around similar to a Mistral Medium 3.5 or a Gemma 4 in terms of quality, intelligence. But what we distinguish here is for that given model, we're one of the fastest in that weight class, right? So you can see here when we benchmarks, we're towards the top, right? And the other thing that we feel very strongly about is multilingual support. You can see here, Command A is towards the very top. RWS is actually the very top, and it's also a Cohere model. It's a custom model that we built for RWS for translation purposes. So if you go to the RWS website, they show like a benchmark here for the model that they use for translation use cases. And under the hood, behind the scene, that is a Cohere model. And then, so hopefully the takeaway is, please give us a try. And you can access Cohere on Foundry using this page. Since we're
No,
we have time for questions, or should we move along, Bethany?
Another 2 questions.
Okay.
So for Command A plus, there's a question: is there a version of the model that can run locally on an NVIDIA RTX GPU, and where can they run it?
Yeah. So by the way, this Command A plus model is available on Hugging Face. So the weights are there, and there's different quantization. I don't know the RTX question off the top of my head, but you can check Hugging Face to see if there's already something that someone quantized that may work for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Probably.
again, if you need more help, reach out to Cohere team.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll find it in Foundry Local at some point also.
Yeah.
There's a question from Nitya. How effective can prompt caching be with these models? Are there any design patterns we can use to optimize for both cost and latency at scale?
Let me see. Prompt caching for these. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to have to follow up on that since I want to check on a few things before I answer that question. But that's a good question. Nitya, send me an email when you get a chance, and then I'll follow up with that on you, okay?
Okay. And then the last question before we go to the final demo. If semantic search, this is from David, if semantic search misses a relevant result before it reaches Rerank, how do you address that? Do you retrieve more candidates, add hybrid keyword search, or rewrite the query?
Yeah, so I would say besides an array of documents that you would send to Rerank, the other factor is the number of documents you send to Rerank. And the key factor when you're testing your use case is for your given scenario and the quality of the initial retrieval, you want to make sure that the initial retrieval, the best results are in that top X or top K, for example. If that top K, the initial retrieval, the top K is 30 or 50, then you should send that to Rerank to reorder the results. Rerank can only reorder what it's been given. So the initial top K is important. So I would say the advice I would say is if you're sending 20 and the results doesn't retrieve the best one, then bump that top K up a bit more. So that will, you'll discover that through the the testing that you do for your use case.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Final demo.
All right. Okay. So you saw the 3 different models that's available on Microsoft Foundry. You can use them individually, right? If you have a search use case, if you have a re-ranking use case, if you have a generative use case. But we're very proud of those models ourselves. And so, we include these models in our own Agentic solution, this platform called North. And in cases where a customer of ours comes to us and says, Andy, hey, I like your models, but I need more help. I don't want to build an agent from scratch. Do you have an agent platform that we can leverage, right? That includes these models, right? And I said, of course, here it is, North, right? So let me give you a scenario of where we can apply North to a line of business use case, like the sales team. This is an actual use case that I supported. We were talking to a CRO, and he has a challenge of like, okay, how can we get more out of our existing sales team without hiring more sales guys? I mean, they don't have the budget to hire more sales guys. That's the whole problem. And so how can North be leveraged and configured so that we can improve the productivity? And the goal of the productivity is on the right here. So what does a sales guy do in a day in life, right? He checks his calendar, he adds calendar, he checks stuff that he has in SharePoint, he summarizes meetings, he checks for accounts in Salesforce, he may create opportunities, he might update opportunities. So there's a lot of manual steps that he goes through in order to do his job. So what I want to illustrate is North can be configured to solve this use case, to solve this sales agent use case. And I'm going to show North here. This is an agent at North. By the way, you can have, every employee can have their own agent, as well as you can create an agent for different line of businesses like the sales agent. So the idea here is, imagine you're a sales guy and you simply said, okay, I want to ask North to just take care of this for me. Check my calendar for any discovery calls that I've done in the last 30 days. Summarize meeting transcripts, add a task to Salesforce opportunity, and then remind me in 7 days, that I have this task that I need to do, right? So this is not a simple user query, right? It's got multi aspects to it. So you see that North went through the process, and let's expand on what happened under the hood, right? It goes to the calendar and it finds the the item. In this case, there was a discovery call with United Oil and Gas. And by the way, I did not mention the customer at all. So it figured that out based on my calendar. Then it took the customer's name, and then it says, okay, is anything in SharePoint related to United Oil and Gas? It figured that out. Okay, then it retrieved the right content, right? And then it says, okay, is anything in Salesforce for United Oil and Gas? Are there any account, objects in Salesforce? But then what's key is that it's not enough to find the account. They have to retrieve the opportunities related to the account. So it's retrieving that. And then obviously, you can see that it cites, when the transcript recording, the meeting recording was stored in SharePoint, and it retrieved that there, and it summarized the results here. And then it created a task in this opportunity. And the key value, hopefully you see, is that, again, this agent not only retrieve the right data from any number of different source systems, but it can also take action on the user's behalf. So in this case, it created a new task that is due in 7 days. That's what the sales guy said to do. And it added the summary of the meeting in the task, which is what the sales guy asked the North agent to do. So hopefully you saw the value of North in action, that it took what the sales guy manually does, all these things, and it did it in a matter of 1 or 2 minutes, right? So hopefully, as a benefit, is that you can imagine over a period of time, if we augment each sales guys with this agent, we can definitely measure the productivity increase for this use case. The other thing that's important to note is that when we deliver North to our customers, we deliver the end-to-end, the full stack. You know, it includes the front-end UI, it includes the generative model, in this case, command, it includes the search models, it includes the search DB, the connectors. So the idea with having the full stack is, you know, where your data is. If you care about sovereignty, or you care about where the data flow can remain within the stack if you choose to configure it that way, right? And this full stack can be deployed on Microsoft Azure Kubernetes services, AKS, right? And it can be deployed on the right region that you care about. Like if you're a Canadian company, you want to keep everything in Canada, and you want to use a Canadian model, and you want a non-US options of all the different models, you have this whole stack wherever you choose to deploy it, right? So that is the benefit of Cohere models as well as the Cohere North platform. Question?
I don't think there's any new questions from the audience, but we have a question from like what you've showcased. There's a question around context. Yes.
Yeah.
So for example, Yes. So for example, you have a global customer service team and you're working with command. Can it handle switches between language? So let's say they're speaking in Spanish, or if Canadian, probably French, and then they switch to English. And then they're sharing all the details as in like quick succession. How do you monitor like the context changes with the changes in language?
Yeah, I mean, you know, if the data or the text is in those languages, you know, that information is stored in that language, in the context. As I mentioned in some earlier slides, we benchmark against, we're very proud of our multilingual capability. And that's why RWS, who is in the translation business, chose to work with us to get to optimize our models for their use case. And so, by the way, it's not just supporting use cases in different languages, like the data is in French, for example, and the question is in French, the user questions. It's not just different language support, but it could be changes in language. Let's say the data is in French, but then a German speaker asked the question in German language, and so or in Japanese, right? So the idea is understanding the data cross languages is something that we test against as well. So if that's important to your use case, and it sounds like that's the case, then command model would be a strong contender if you are willing to try it out and give us a chance.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I'll probably go ahead and experiment more with this, especially finance, because I love looking at reports and earnings. So probably use this for a specific reason. There's a question from Nitya. One last question before we close. Can developers write custom connectors for North? For instance, if you want to add a third-party app like Outlook or any
Right.
M365 app, can you create a custom connector for North?
Yes, we can. You can create a custom connector. Usually, that approach is through an MCP, for example, and we have guidelines where you can add connectors through MCP. By the way, since we're talking about M365 apps, out of the box, like you saw in the demo, we support SharePoint out of the box. So that's a first class native connector. We support OneDrive, we support Outlook. So a number of connectors for M365 scenarios are available out of the box. But you can create custom connectors through MCP.
Yeah, that's really cool. So we have a comment from Jose. I want to end the segment with his comment. He's given us 3 claps saying, amazing models, Andy, thank you for sharing. And I agree because before hosting this session, I didn't know the range of like the different Cohere models and what you have in store, especially the language, and the images. Like you can add images, you can add different modalities. That is really cool, especially for data, because data does not come in the same manner. I'm hoping you'll add audio in future, right?
Oh yeah. Well, actually, if you're talking about transcribing speech to text, we already have a transcribe model available. So look for that model on Hugging Face. It's a free open source model, by the way. So if you're looking for speech to text, it's already available from us. It wasn't something I included today, but yeah, try it out and let us know if you like it. We even created a custom transcribe model for the Middle East use cases.
Oh, that's amazing. That's incredible. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Just one last thing I want to mention. Again, if you're looking for models for your use case and you want a viable non-US option, right? We're a Canadian company, we build our model from scratch. You care about sovereignty or data sovereignty, you want to deploy in certain regions, hopefully you will give Cohere a chance.
Definitely. Okay, thank you so much, Andy. It's been lovely having you. So the next segment is about the top news we've had this, should I say week? I don't know. AI moves so fast, so it might even be the past 2 days. But we have our weekly highlight segment by Shamila. Hi, Shami. How are you doing?
Hi, Bethany. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here again on Model Mondays to talk about the weekly highlights. And I'm glad that the Cohere section went really well, and that was really great to see Andy show all these amazing models. And I would encourage everyone to go into Foundry catalog and try out all those models that Andy showed. So, Bethany, can we jump in?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, awesome. So the first highlight, I mean, this is not something net new this week, but this happened over the last few months. And since we have not been having Model Mondays, I just wanted to bring it back to everyone's attention. That Claude in Microsoft Foundry is now generally available, and it's hosted on Azure. So this gives enterprises like frontier model choice with Azure controls that they already use. So in the past, we did have Claude, but it was not hosted on Azure. It was hosted on Anthropic. And then because of this, customers can use Claude through the existing Azure account with Entra ID, RBAC, and consolidated billing. And then we also have global and US data zone support. So the regional kind of data availability and data retention option and zero data retention options are all part of this GA of Claude and Foundry. And another news that I didn't capture here, but which is going to happen in the next like 45 minutes. So it's a hot news that we are releasing some net new features as part of our roadmap, like tool search, web fetch, and all those new features, which will be available on Azure as well. So just keep an eye out for that launch to happen in the next 45 minutes. So it's breaking news. Yeah. Going on to the next one. Yeah. Content understanding. So I just wanted to call this out because Azure Content Understanding is making document processing simpler with this new asynchronous read and layout APIs. So it's making it easier to extract text, tables, structure, handwriting, and other information from documents with real-time application and agent workflows without having to orchestrate like asynchronous processing. So this is a huge update on content understanding side, and I wanted to call that out as well. And moving on, of course, there is no model news complete without GPT, like a OpenAI or an Anthropic update. So we have OpenAI, so a Foundry is updating the GPT chat latest, giving developers a way to build against the latest GPT chat model without continually migrating deployments as new snapshots arrive. So it is designed for teams that want to move quickly with the newest model improvements, while version pin models remain the better choice when consistency is the priority. So, this is built for conversational applications with more focused response, improved factual reliability, and data consistency. So, for all the highlights, I've shared a QR code as well as a link to that blog. So, go ahead and take a look at it. Now, moving on, the next, this is not a model update. It's more of like the MIT, technology review paper that recently came out, which talks about the agent confidence index, and Microsoft and MIT have done this survey with over 300 technical experts across 12 industries and 101 tasks to understand where builders actually trust agents today. So the average confidence is said to be around 64 over 100, with 30 tasks scoring above 70, and automated report generation, it's leading at 82.5. So the takeaway is that agent adoption is moving from experimentation towards delegating predictable and repetitive work, and it's no longer kind of a POC project. So go read about it. A lot of useful and interesting information in there. And then finally, again, the last one is around Gartner. We are again, Microsoft is leading the Gartner Magic Quadrant leader in the AI augmented code modernization tools. So it is. We have been recognized as a software solution that uses specialized AI agents, generative AI, and deterministic analysis to accelerate how we transform like legacy systems. So this is a huge thing, and again, it just speaks to all the great tools and products that we have been launching and how everything is coming together for all developers. So that brings us to an end to all the weekly highlights. I'll share more next week. But again, this is our top 5 highlights, but there's a lot landing, but just the top 5 that I picked for this week.
Thank you so much, Shamila. It's really nice to see all the different options and choice you have with Foundry. And then I love the fact that now we're moving from experimenting with agents to actually using the agents and having it do actual work instead of just, doing it for demos. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy about this. So next week, we have a very interesting session with Sanjeev and Lee. They'll be talking about model router. So all this time we focused on singular models like my Cohere. This is now the second episode. For episode 3, we'll now be talking about what if you want to use multiple models. How do you do that? Like,
how do you bring these different models into one application? And then how do you ensure it reduces cost by selecting the best model for the use case and also ensuring the quality still remains the best? So join us next week and learn more about Model Rota. It will be worth your while, I promise. But thank you so much for joining us today. It's been lovely with all the questions. I love all the claps in the chat. Everyone is so happy for Shamila and Andy. So I'm so grateful for you guys coming in and sharing the weekly highlights and more on Cohere. See you next week, and don't forget to join us. Same time, same place. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you all for joining, and thanks again to our speakers. We're always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find our survey link on the screen or in the chat, and we'll see you at the next one.